Hey, have you ever wondered if everything you believe about yourself, your name, your memories, your personality, might be just a story you've been told? It sounds wild, right? Yet there's a quiet yet powerful perspective suggesting you were never actually born as a separate being. This doesn't mean denying your physical existence or the fact that you're here in this moment. Instead, it invites you to see that the self you think you are might be more like a dream character than an actual, solid entity. When you wake up from this dream, you discover something vast, timeless, and entirely free. And it's been right here all along, waiting for you to notice. Imagine, just for a moment, that all your worries and fears revolve around protecting a fictional identity, like a character in a movie clinging to the script. If you realize the character wasn't who you truly are, wouldn't the pressure lift? Wouldn't life become a grand adventure rather than a grim struggle? Today, I want to explore how to see through this illusion of self and discover the profound freedom hidden in plain sight. Let's start by looking at what we usually call I. From the time we're little, people point at us and say our name. They say, "You're so tall," or "You're so quiet," and we collect these labels like stickers. Over the years, these stickers start to feel permanent. We think, "This is me. I was born on this day, in this place, under these circumstances, and I'll die someday in the future." But what if this birth and death storyline is only part of a larger picture? What if the real you doesn't have a beginning or an end? To make sense of this, picture a single wave in the vast ocean. The wave appears to have its own shape, crest, and momentum. It seems to arise, travel, and finally crash onto the shore. But is the wave ever really separate from the ocean? Does it truly begin, or does the water merely shift into a waveform and then shift again? And when it dissolves back into the sea, did it truly cease to exist? Seeing this, you might notice that the wave was never truly born as an individual, nor did it truly die. It was always water, simply expressing itself in a particular moment. In a similar way, our sense of I is like the wave believing it stands alone. We point to that wave and say, "This is me, unique, separate, and temporary." Then we worry about how long we'll last, or whether we're high enough, impressive enough, or strong enough. But what if you realized that what you truly are is the ocean, boundless, formless, and beautifully dynamic? From this vantage point, the drama of a single wave can be seen, appreciated, even loved, but it no longer imprisons you in fear or insecurity. Now, I'm not suggesting we ignore the world, our responsibilities, or the joy of being alive. It's not about renouncing everyday life or pretending we don't have bodies. It's about noticing that everything we call me is constantly in motion, shifting like sand in the wind. Think of your physical body. As a baby, you were tiny. Then you grew taller, stronger, and maybe a little wrinkly over the years. The cells in your body keep replacing themselves. So which version is the real you? 10 years ago? Now? Or 10 years from today? Your thoughts change too faster than you can snap your fingers. One day you're convinced of something. The next day you might see it totally differently. Emotions come in waves. They flood you with excitement, anger, sadness, and eventually subside. If you were truly these changing patterns, you'd disappear every time the pattern shifted. But something remains constant. Something is always here, noticing it all. Let's call that something awareness or presence. If you pause right now and look at a thought like, "I'm hungry," or "I'm bored," you'll see there's an awareness noticing the thought. You can say, "I am aware of my hunger," which indicates there's a difference between the awareness, the observer, and the hunger, the observed. Then check in with emotions. If you feel anxious or relaxed, there's a sense of witnessing that emotion. You might say, "I feel anxious," but the deeper truth is, anxiety is being observed right now. And who's doing the observing? This observer is not an object. You can't hold it in your hand, and it doesn't come and go. It's more like a space in which all experiences appear. It's like the sky, open and unharmed, no matter which clouds drift by. In fact, the awareness you are is so subtle that it's easy to miss because it's always here. We usually focus on the objects of awareness. I feel hot. I see a tree. I hear music. Yet we rarely notice the constant presence that's doing the seeing, the hearing, and the feeling. Think of it like light in a room. When you enter a dark space and flip on a light switch, you see the furniture, the walls, maybe a painting on the wall. The light itself isn't something you see as an object, but it reveals everything else. Awareness is like that, quietly illuminating all your experiences. Even if you never pay attention to the light, it's still there. You can't lose it. It's actually what you are at the deepest level. When we say you were never born, we mean that this awareness, this true essence, was never generated at any specific moment in time. It was never turned on. Rather, time and space appear within awareness. I know it sounds backward if you're used to thinking, I was born into this world at a certain time. But consider flipping that perspective. The world arises within your experience. You're not inside the world is inside you. Your senses, your perceptions, they happen in the space of awareness. And when you sleep, the world as you know it disappears, only to reappear in the morning. Where is it coming and going? Inside your awareness. If this is all new and a little mind-bending, that's totally normal. Our usual thought patterns might say, this is impossible, or that can't be right. But you don't have to take my word for it. In fact, it's better if you don't. Instead, you can investigate for yourself. Try a simple experiment right now. Notice that you're aware of reading or listening to these words. Then ask, who or what is aware? Where is this awareness located? You won't find it locked behind your eyes or stashed in your brain. It's not something you can point to like an organ or a limb. It's more fundamental, more mysterious. Many of us cling to the idea of being a separate individual self because it feels safe. It gives us a sense of control and identity. But ironically, this clinging is at the root of so much suffering. The moment we identify as a little me, we're comparing ourselves to others. We're trying to protect ourselves from threats, whether physical, emotional, or social. We're building walls and fearing what lies beyond them. It's like wearing a too tight suit all day, every day, and forgetting that you can take it off. Let's talk about the ego for a moment. The ego is basically this mental construct that says, I am a person, separate from everyone else, and I have to fight for my place in the world. It's the voice that claims credit for your successes and blames you for your failures. But if you look closely, you'll see the ego is made of thoughts, beliefs, and labels. When you try to find the ego physically, you come up empty. It's nowhere to be found except as a pattern of thinking. Like a spider web, it can feel sticky, holding you tight, but there's no real spider behind it, no separate self pulling the strings. Here's a metaphor. Think of a character in a dream. The dream character might struggle, laugh, cry, or achieve something in that dream world. But when you wake up, you realize it was all happening in your mind, in your consciousness. The dream character never had its own life. In a similar way, the separate self we think we are is like a dream character, bustling around in life's complexities. But that character isn't the real you. You're the awareness in which the entire dream of life appears. And that's the beauty of it. Once you see the truth, you don't lose your sense of being alive or your ability to enjoy life. Instead, you gain a kind of freedom that no external circumstances can take away. Fear of death dissolves when you see you were never truly born to begin with. How can you lose what was never separate in the first place? When your body eventually wears out, like a wave returning to the ocean, the essence of you remains as the limitless sea of awareness. It's always been so. You can't possibly fall out of existence because existence itself is what you are. You might wonder, if there's no separate me, then who's responsible for my choices? Won't I become a lifeless shell? Not at all. Life continues seamlessly. Thoughts, decisions, and actions still occur, just like before. The only difference is, you recognize they're arising spontaneously from a deeper intelligence or presence, not from a tiny personal manager in your head. Actually, it might feel easier to navigate daily life without the constant commentary of the ego questioning and judging every move. You live more like a dancer flowing with the music rather than a puppet pulling its own strings. If you want a practical tip to step into this awareness, try simply pausing during the day and noticing that you are aware. That sounds too simple, but it's powerful. Don't force anything. Just take a breath and realize I'm aware right now, and these thoughts and sensations are floating by. Once in a while, ask yourself, who am I really? Where is this I located? Don't look for an intellectual answer. Instead, rest in that open curiosity. Over time, you'll sense that your identity is much more open and unlimited than you once believed. Of course, doubts will pop up, and that's perfectly fine. Our mind loves to question things like this. How can I be awareness? I have a body, I have bills to pay, I have a family. All of that can still be true without you being a separate self. The body and the world are part of the grand stage, like characters in a cosmic play. Recognizing your true nature doesn't mean you abandon life. If anything, it allows you to embrace life more fully, because you're not consumed by endless mental chatter about protecting or enhancing some fragile identity. Think of life like a vast tapestry, with each of us as threads woven together into one masterpiece. From the thread's perspective, it might feel alone, surrounded by other threads. But from the tapestry's viewpoint, every thread is an expression of the same design, inseparable from the whole. When you see that you're not just a single thread, but part of an infinite tapestry, compassion arises naturally. The fear of them versus me starts to fade, replaced by a humble recognition that we're all in this together. So, how can you live from this deeper truth? You begin by noticing that life is happening by itself. There's a natural intelligence guiding your breath, your digestion, and even your insights. Everything arises effortlessly, much like the sun shining without needing a reason or approval. Realizing this can free up a lot of mental and emotional energy. You no longer struggle to maintain a self-image or to prove your worth. Instead, you move with the flow of life, trusting in that deeper presence. Now, some people worry they'll lose their motivation or passion. But true passion isn't forced. It's not about chasing achievements to validate your identity. Rather, authentic passion is like a blossoming flower that arises from the richness of life itself. When you're no longer trapped in a small self, you might find that your creativity, empathy, and love grow exponentially because you're no longer limited by fear and self-doubt. You start to engage with the world from a place of abundance rather than scarcity. Consider an actress on a stage. While the play is going on, she wholeheartedly plays her role, laughs, cries, does everything the script demands. But deep down, she knows it's just a role. She doesn't get lost in it. After the final bow, she goes home and returns to her normal life without confusion. Similarly, you can still play your human role. Fulfill your responsibilities, love your friends and family, yet remain rooted in the awareness that you're not confined to that role. It's a dance, and you're free to enjoy every step without forgetting who's actually dancing. Let's address a big concern. Is it selfish to say, I'm pure awareness? Actually, this understanding can dissolve selfishness. When you see yourself as awareness rather than a separate entity, the boundaries between me and you start to blur. Empathy naturally increases because you recognize the same consciousness animating everyone. You realize that helping someone else is ultimately helping yourself, and harming another is harming yourself. This recognition fosters genuine kindness and cooperation. Sometimes, people expect a lightning bolt moment of realization. But for many, it's more like gently peeling layers off an onion. You explore beliefs, see through them, and get glimpses of the boundless space within. The mind might say, "I get it," one day, and I'm totally lost the next. Both are steps on the journey. The important thing is to keep looking, keep inquiring. Over time, these glimpses deepen. You become more stable in the recognition that you are not just the body or the thinking mind. You are the open sky that holds all weather patterns, remaining untouched, at peace. What about birth and death then? If you see yourself as awareness, you begin to understand that what we call birth is the appearance of form in space and time, and what we call death is the dissolution of that form. But the space of awareness was never formed to begin with, so it can't be destroyed. It's like the blank page onto which a story is written. No matter how tragic or comedic the story, when it ends, the page is still there, pristine as ever. Does this mean you should ignore grief or deny the loss of loved ones? Absolutely not. Being free from the illusion of self doesn't make you numb. You still feel the waves of emotion, sadness, love, attachment. But you also sense a deeper dimension that isn't touched by those waves. You can be present for sorrow without being swallowed by it. You can honor the transient forms while resting in what doesn't come or go. One helpful way to integrate this is through mini check-ins during your normal activities. While you're having a conversation, you can notice that awareness is hearing the words. While you're washing dishes, you can feel the warm water and realize, "I'm aware of these sensations." This is not about making daily tasks some huge mystical endeavor. It's about frequently remembering to return to your true vantage point as awareness itself. Over time, that vantage point becomes more natural, more familiar than your old habit of identifying as a separate me. People often ask, what if the world is crazy and I need to fight for what's right? Recognizing your true nature doesn't mean you become passive. It can actually empower you to act without fear. When you're not entangled in personal ego concerns, you can stand up for truth, justice, or compassion more effectively. You're less defensive, more flexible, and more connected to the broader well-being of all. It's like seeing the entire chessboard rather than just fixating on one piece. Let's also acknowledge that intellectual understanding isn't enough. You might be nodding along thinking, "Okay, this makes sense." Yet the real shift happens when you sense it in your bones, when it becomes a lived experience. This is where practices like meditation, self-inquiry, and mindful presence can help. They calm the chatter of the mind and reveal the silent, ever-present background of awareness. Little by little, you discover you're not who you thought you were. You see that who you really are can't be contained or disguised. Doesn't everyone say we have a soul or spirit that's personal to us? This perspective is slightly different. Instead of being a unique soul traveling through lifetimes, it's more like one universal awareness wearing countless disguises, including your personality and mine. These disguises shift and change, but the core awareness remains the same, unblemished and unchanging. It's like the sun reflecting in 100 puddles after rain. Every reflection looks a bit different, but the sun itself is one and the same. When you absorb this understanding, there's a peace that grows. The fear of non-existence fades, because you see you're not dependent on a small mortal identity for your reality. The anxious question, "What happens to me after death?" becomes less pressing, almost like worrying about the fate of a character in last night's dream. That doesn't mean you stop caring about life. On the contrary, you might start cherishing each moment more deeply, recognizing it as a fleeting but precious expression within the vast expanse of awareness. Now, if you're still skeptical, that's healthy. Real exploration includes doubt, but don't let doubt be a dead end. Let it spur you to investigate. Observe your thoughts, watch them come and go, and ask, "Am I this thought? Or am I the one aware of the thought?" watch your body's sensations. They rise and subside, but something remains constant, noticing. The more you peel away, the more you realize you've always been the ocean, not just a wave. You've been the sky, not just a passing cloud. So, how do we wrap this up and bring it back to daily life in a way that's practical and inspiring? Start by reflecting on the idea that you were never truly born as a separate self. Yes, you have a human story, a name, and experiences, but these are like costumes and stage props. Underneath it all, you are free, limitless awareness. Recognizing this changes the way you engage with everything. Stressful deadlines? They're just events arising in the spaciousness of your being. Relationship conflicts? They become easier to navigate when you aren't defending a fragile self-image. Even moments of triumph become more vibrant because you see them as dancing forms in the infinite space of your true nature. When you wake up each day, take a moment and just settle into the fact that you're here. Awareness is present. You don't have to push away thoughts or chores. Let them appear. But remember that the real you is like the stillness in which all these activities happen. It's like a silent stage that hosts every drama and comedy but remains untouched when the curtain falls. The more you know this for yourself, the lighter you'll feel inside. Life's ups and downs will still happen, but you'll ride them with the confidence of someone who knows they cannot be lost or broken. If you come away from this with just one insight, let it be this: you're not who you think you are. You're far more incredible, an endless expanse of being that was never created and can never be destroyed. You were never born is another way of saying you're beyond time, beyond any idea of limitation. Let that sink in for a moment, because once you glimpse even a fraction of this truth, there's no going back to the old cramped ways of thinking. You'll find yourself naturally exploring and celebrating the miracle of existence, not as a frightened wave, but as the glorious ocean itself. So thank you for taking this journey with me. If you feel a sense of wonder or curiosity, that's a great place to be. Don't rush to nail down the answers. Let the mystery unfold. Let the questions breathe. In that open space, you might just notice a quiet knowing that resonates with every word we've shared. That knowing is your true home, always here, always free, whether you're meditating in silence or laughing with friends. Embrace it and watch life transform from the inside out. You don't have to memorize anything or adopt a bunch of beliefs. You only need to see clearly. The separate self you've struggled to maintain is an illusion. The real you is vast and unconfined. Recognize this and step into a life where each moment sparkles with the brilliance of freedom. Because you were never born, you can never die, and realizing that might just be the most profound and liberating discovery you'll ever make. So go ahead, take a deep breath, and dive into the ocean of your true nature. You've been home all along. Enjoy the peace that arises and share it with everyone you meet. The world could use a little more of that, don't you think? And what better gift to give than the recognition of boundless, timeless being your real identity? Thank you for watching and listening. May this message light a path within you, reminding you that you are free, now and always. The adventure continues, and there's no limit to how deeply you can realize this truth. Here's to the grand mystery of being one that never began and will never end. Welcome to your true nature. Enjoy the ride.